I've lived in Conifer Heights, a neat little suburban neighborhood in the heart of the American Midwest, for the past 5 years. Most people here are friendly, or at least civil, in the way that neighbors can be. We wave hello in the mornings when I pull out of my driveway to take my teenage daughter Emily to school. On weekends, I grill out back, and a few of my neighbors sometimes drop by for a quick chat. We talk about sports, property taxes, or the unpredictable weather that always keeps us guessing. But beneath this veneer of suburban normalcy, there's always been a rumbling tension that bubbles up now and then in the form of one particular individual. Her name is Brenda Armidick, though everyone calls her Karen, a nickname she has unwittingly embraced. I first met Brenda at the annual Homeowners Association, HOA, meeting not long after I moved in. She was introduced to me as the new community board member who oversaw property aesthetics and rule compliance. A fancy way of saying she made sure everyone followed the strict codes set by the HOA. I was a single father, and I'd inherited this house from my sister, who'd passed away from a heart condition. She left it to me and Emily, partly because Conifer Heights had good schools and partly because the property was near the gym where Emily trained in mixed martial arts. Emily was only 13 when we moved in, a sweet kid who was already seriously dedicated to her training. She had started martial arts when she was 9 to build confidence after being bullied at her old school. Now, at 17, she's a reigning national champion in her age division, unstoppable in tournaments across the region. Despite the heartbreak of losing my sister, I tried to look at life in Conifer Heights as a new beginning. I threw myself into fatherhood, determined to guide Emily the best I could. She trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and wrestling, among other disciplines. She was fearless in the cage and the ring, yet quiet and gentle outside of it. A respectful teenager who'd say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir to her elders. I never imagined that her polite exterior would one day lead a group of overzealous cops to underestimate her. And in my wildest dreams, I never would have thought that Karen, our self-assured, meddlesome HOA official, would be at the heart of a conflict that would eventually turn so dangerous, not only for Emily, but for the entire neighborhood. But I should back up a bit to those early days when I realized that Karen's iron grip on the community wasn't just rumor or exaggeration. She truly thought of the neighborhood as her personal fief. Karen acted like she owned every house in Conifer Heights and viewed herself as the protector of some mythical standard that the rest of us were apparently too careless to uphold. She was in her late 40s or early 50s, with meticulously styled hair and a permanent sneer that seemed to suggest she had smelled something rancid in your general direction. Karen also carried herself with that brand of arrogance that comes from a deep-seated belief she could do no wrong in her official capacity on the HOA board. She patrolled the neighborhood in her white SUV, always impeccably clean, with a sticker on the back reading, HOA board, keeping Conifer Heights beautiful. She'd drive by your home, slow down, and crane her neck out the window, taking mental notes if your lawn wasn't trimmed to the proper height or if your trash bin stayed on the curb an hour too long after pickup day. When I first met her, she handed me a welcome packet stuffed with rules and a friendly note. That note read, "Welcome to Conifer Heights. As a new resident, please be sure to familiarize yourself with our guidelines for exterior decor, lawn maintenance, and vehicle parking. We trust you will uphold our high standards. Warm regards, Brenda Armidick, Karen, Head of Maintenance and Aesthetics Committee." I remember thinking, this is a bit intense, but I didn't mind. I figured every community needed some form of structure. Over time, though, the complaints started rolling in. One morning, I was parked slightly over the sidewalk, and a note from Karen read, "This is your first warning." When Emily's friend visited and parked overnight, I got another note. "Vehicles cannot remain on the street after midnight." Second warning. Then, my garden hose was left out by accident, and it clashed with the overall color palette of the neighborhood. As Karen explained, "Please remove unsightly objects from your front yard." What made Karen more than just a busybody was how she delivered these messages, always with passive-aggressive flair and the threat of a fine or an HOA citation. It was like she thrived on confrontation. If I so much as tried to apologize or explain, she would cut me off with a wave of her hand and a cold stare. Eventually, I learned that practically everyone in the neighborhood had a similar story. Bob, my neighbor to the left, had received warnings for letting his kids draw chalk art on the sidewalk. Karen believed the bright colors and whimsical designs detracted from the uniform look of the community. Down the street, a mild scandal broke out because someone had painted her mailbox navy blue instead of the officially sanctioned black. She had to repaint it under threat of a $200 fine. Yet despite the frustration, most of us stayed quiet. There was an unspoken agreement that pushing back might just make Karen's intrusions worse. She relished her power. She lived for that sense of control. Perched in her SUV, scanning lawns and driveways, rummaging through trash day schedules. Little did I know how far she would take it once Emily's MMA involvement began to catch her eye, or perhaps more accurately, her ignorance. Life carried on. Emily and I had our routine. Early morning jogs, school, and then training sessions in the afternoons at a local MMA gym called Iron Faith Academy. The place had produced more than a few rising stars in regional mixed martial arts competitions. Coach Davis, a veteran of the sport, was as strict as he was caring. He nurtured Emily's passion for martial arts and gave her specialized training because he saw her potential. At the gym, Emily was popular among her teammates. Even though she was a champion, she never boasted. She didn't hang her medals on the walls at home or strut around bragging about her victories. She took her success in stride, kept her head down, and focused on working harder and getting better each day. When word spread around the neighborhood that Emily was involved in mixed martial arts, I started noticing that Karen would eye us suspiciously. MMA has a stigma in the minds of some people who know it only by sensational headlines. Barbaric, violent, or too aggressive. Karen likely saw Emily's training as a dangerous hobby that threatened the family-friendly environment of Conifer Heights. One day, as Emily and I returned from her tournament, we were both exhausted from the trip but elated because she'd taken first place in her category. Her teammates had also done very well. That same afternoon, we stepped out of the car and found Karen waiting at the edge of our driveway, arms crossed, foot tapping. She looked like a teacher about to scold a naughty child. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clipped. "I've received complaints about shouting in the backyard. People have heard loud vocalizations as if someone is fighting." I raised my eyebrows, trying to keep calm. "That's just Emily practicing her katas and drills. She's a martial artist." Karen scoffed. "We don't allow excessive noise in this neighborhood, especially if it sounds violent. You should move that training elsewhere." "I'm sorry," I replied evenly, "but it's just a few minutes of practice. We're always done before 8 p.m. We don't do it too early in the morning either to avoid disturbing anyone. I believe that's within the HOA guidelines." Karen's lips curled. "We'll see if complaints continue. I'll take further action. Don't test me." Emily gave Karen a polite nod, trying to make peace. "I'm sorry if we disturbed anyone. We'll keep the noise down. I'm just training for national competitions." Emily finished, and Karen pursed her lips, marching off without saying goodbye. The next day, I found a notice in our mailbox stating that we'd been given an official HOA strike for excessive noise and potential disturbance. It made no sense. The guidelines clearly stated that noise limitations were in effect after 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 p.m. on weekends. We were well within the time limits. I confronted Karen politely at the next HOA meeting, pointing out the rulebook and how her notice didn't align with it. She shrugged. "Don't you question my interpretation of the guidelines. The board stands by me. If you have an issue, you can request a special hearing." Her arrogance took my breath away. She was effectively rewriting the rules as she saw fit. I decided to let it go that time. Fighting Karen in front of the entire HOA membership would be pointless. She was entrenched, and I suspected the board members were reluctant to cross her. If there was a storm brewing, I hoped it might blow over soon. But storms don't simply blow over when fueled by the unstoppable force of a petty tyrant. Emily's success continued to grow. She traveled around the state and even across the country, competing in various tournaments. Her trophies and accolades piled up. Yet at school, she remained a modest student, known for being quiet and friendly. She was also balancing advanced classes, aiming to attend a good college on both academic and sports scholarships. Meanwhile, Karen escalated her campaign. I'd see her car idling outside our place at odd hours. When I left for the grocery store, she'd be parked across the street, arms folded, glaring. I once even caught her snapping pictures of our backyard. What was she looking for? Evidence to levy another fine or penalty. I suppose maybe she expected to see something scandalous like a battered punching bag hanging from a tree in violation of some obscure regulation. Neighbors began whispering that Karen was particularly obsessed with Emily. As twisted as it sounded, Karen seemed to despise the idea of a teenage girl excelling in a sport she considered undesirable. Perhaps it challenged her worldview. Or maybe she just wanted to stamp out anything she couldn't control or understand. I tried to find ways to de-escalate. I approached her politely one afternoon. "Look, Miss Armitage," I said softly, "I understand you have a job to do, but Emily is just training for her tournaments. She's not harming anyone. If you have any concerns, can we talk it out? We'll meet any guideline you set that's within reason." Karen sniffed. "I don't appreciate the insinuation that I'm the bad guy here. I'm just doing what's right for the community." "Of course," I said, trying to keep the peace. "I just want to ensure we follow the HOA rules correctly. We don't want to be singled out unfairly." "Oh, you won't be singled out if you comply," she replied with her signature sneer. "If you follow the rules, there won't be problems. But if I see one more instance of loud fighting drills, unsightly gear, or suspicious activity, I'll be forced to report it to the authorities." That last part made me pause. Report us to the authorities for practicing martial arts in our backyard. It sounded ridiculous, but I knew how local laws worked. Noise complaints or allegations of disturbance could prompt the police to at least visit or investigate. Not a week later, a few squad cars actually appeared on our street. They parked near my driveway. My heart hammered, thinking Emily might have done something to draw their attention. Instead, they walked right past my property to an empty lot across the street. I soon learned an unrelated burglary had been reported a few blocks away, and they were just patrolling. Still, Karen stood on her front porch, arms crossed, glaring at me as if to say, "See, even the police are on to you." The sense of being under siege weighed on Emily too. She confided that she felt anxious going for her runs or practicing in the backyard, worried that Karen was lurking with a camera. Despite all this, I told Emily to keep training, to do it within our rights, and not to back down from bullies, especially ones who like to manipulate the rules. Emily was nearing the finals in a national championship for her age group, set to take place in the spring. She had stepped up her training regimen with her teammates at Iron Faith Academy. I'd drive her there most evenings after school. She'd spend hours refining technique, drilling with sparring partners, and working on her stamina. One weekend, Coach Davis invited some of the more advanced teens to practice techniques in a public park near the gym, a mini demo for the community to watch and learn about MMA. The city had approved the demonstration, and a group of a dozen teens and parents arrived with mats to lay out on the grass. Emily was excited as she enjoyed public demos that helped raise awareness of the sport's discipline and artistry. Unbeknownst to us, Karen had apparently caught wind of the event. She'd been rummaging through social media or local bulletins, who knows. She spotted an announcement about the Iron Faith Academy demonstration and must have decided that was her perfect chance to stir trouble. The demonstration started around noon on a sunny Saturday. Families gathered, curious passersby watched, and even a local reporter was there writing a piece on youth sports. Emily and her teammates put on an impressive show. They demonstrated grappling moves, safe sparring techniques, and explained how MMA combined respect, discipline, and strategy. People clapped, some asked questions, and it was turning into a positive community-building moment. I was standing off to the side, chatting with other parents and Coach Davis, proud to see Emily so poised and confident in the ring, even if it was just a small demonstration area. Then I noticed a white SUV pull into the parking lot. Out stepped Karen, wearing large sunglasses, a brimmed hat, and that familiar scowl. She briskly walked right up to us, ignoring the spectacle. "What's she doing here?" asked one parent, frowning. I sighed. "This can't be good. Everyone, let me handle it." Karen marched straight toward the center of the demonstration, uninvited, and said loudly, "I need to speak with Emily's father." Immediately, Coach Davis and I approached her, confusion playing on our faces. "What's going on, Karen? This is a public event. You're not on HOA property." She gave a thin smile. "I receive calls from concerned residents that there might be violent or dangerous activities involving minors here. I've come to ensure everything is lawful." "Violent? Dangerous?" Coach Davis asked, eyebrows raised. "This is an MMA demo approved by the city. We have the permit." Karen crossed her arms as if unimpressed. "We'll see about that." An uneasy hush fell over the small crowd. A few onlookers started filming on their phones, anticipating a confrontation. Emily, sensing something was off, left the mat area and walked over. "Dad," I put a hand on Emily's shoulder. "Don't worry. She's just here to cause trouble." Suddenly, Karen pulled out her phone and dialed a number. We overheard her end of the conversation. "Yes, dispatch. I'm at Greenfield Park, and there is a group of teenagers engaged in what appears to be an unsanctioned fight. They're being unruly, and it looks quite dangerous." My jaw dropped. "What are you talking about? This is all sanctioned. We have a permit." Karen ignored me, continuing her call. "Yes, there's a large crowd. Some are yelling. It's definitely a disturbance of the peace." She ended the call with a smirk. "We'll see who's in the right once law enforcement arrives." Coach Davis and I exchanged disbelieving looks. We didn't want a physical altercation, so we asked the teens to pause the demonstration, collect their gear, and get ready to show the police our permits. Everyone was on edge, uncertain about how quickly things might escalate. We waited about 20 minutes before 2 police cruisers pulled into the lot. Out stepped 4 officers, 2 men and 2 women. Karen was upon them in an instant, greeting them like she was an old friend. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. I feared the worst, these violent kids. I approached them calmly, hands visible, and explained the situation. "Officers, my name is James Carter. We have a permit from the city to conduct a martial arts demonstration. These are professional instructors and teenage competitors under Coach Davis's supervision. We're not causing any trouble." Coach Davis held out the permit, and one of the officers, whose nameplate read Officer D. Wilkins, examined it without much comment. Another officer, Officer Brooks, looked at the group of teenagers, all wearing gym t-shirts or MMA attire, and asked them to step back. The tension in the air was thick. Karen, still standing near the officers, pointed at Emily, who was still wearing her MMA gloves and sweats. "That one. She's the ringleader. She's the noisiest one in our neighborhood. I see her practicing all the time. If there's trouble, it starts with her." Emily stared at Karen, stunned. "Ma'am, we're just doing a legal demonstration," she said. Officer Wilkins cut her off. "Ma'am, please be quiet for a moment." I noticed an unsettling tone in his voice, as though he'd already made up his mind that something unlawful had occurred. Another officer, Officer J. Kim, tried to calm everyone. "Let's not jump to conclusions. We just need to verify the permit and make sure everything is in order." Karen, however, kept prodding them. "This group is out of control. They were grappling and hitting each other. I'm sure that's not what this park is for." Coach Davis shook his head. "That's exactly what the permit is for. It's an MMA demonstration. We explained this to the city council. It's all on record." Officer Wilkins turned to me with a skeptical look. "Sir, if you have a permit, that's fine, but we need to ensure everyone here is safe. We got reports of a fight." Karen raised her voice, pointing at Emily. "Check her bag. She might have weapons, and she's been known to intimidate the neighbors with her combat skills." The sheer absurdity of her accusations pushed me to the brink, but I forced myself to remain calm. Emily, too, looked startled but steady. "Weapons? No, sir. All I have are gloves, wraps, and gear." Despite the legitimate permit in Officer Wilkins's hand, the officers decided to do a quick search of the teens' bags. We consented reluctantly because we had nothing to hide and wanted to defuse the situation. Coach Davis oversaw the checks. When they got to Emily's bag, they found exactly what she said: gloves, wraps, a mouthguard, and a water bottle. Officer Kim nodded, satisfied. "All clear here." I thought that would be the end of it, but as we turned to walk back to our demonstration area, Officer Wilkins noticed Emily was still wearing her MMA gloves. They were fingerless, padded gloves, common in training. "Young lady, remove those gloves." Emily froze, confused. "Sir," she said. I said, "Remove those gloves and step away." He repeated, placing his hand on his taser. My heart pounded. Why was he so on edge? She was no threat, just wearing standard training gear. Maybe he interpreted it as some kind of weapon. "Officers," I shouted, stepping forward with my hands outstretched. "She's done nothing wrong. She's a minor." "Stay where you are, sir," Officer Wilkins commanded. "I won't ask again." My instincts as a father kicked in. I wanted to push between Emily and the officer, but I also feared that would escalate the situation. Suddenly, The other two officers, Brooks and Kim, moved in. Officer Brooks reached for his own taser as well, pointing it at Emily. "Don't make any sudden moves." Emily, holding her hands up to show she wasn't a threat, tried to speak in an even voice. "Officer, I'm not resisting. I'm taking off my gloves. Please calm down." Behind me, I heard Karen's triumphant whisper. Finally, they see the danger. Danger from a 17-year-old girl wearing training gloves. My fury spiked, but I held it in. Before things could spiral further, a group of Emily's MMA teammates, still wearing their uniforms, jogged over. These were strong, disciplined young men and women who respected authority but were alarmed to see their friend at taser point. Coach Davis stepped between them and the officers, urging them to stay back, not wanting a physical confrontation in that tense moment. Emily's eyes flicked around for an escape route. As a martial artist, she was probably already analyzing how to disarm or dodge if the officers fired a taser, but she wasn't going to fight the cops. That would be disastrous. Officer Kim tried again to calm Wilkins and Brooks. "Guys, let's not overreact." She's complying. But Officer Wilkins was in too deep. His pride wouldn't let him stand down easily in front of the crowd. "Young lady, place your hands on your head." Emily did as instructed, removing her gloves and setting them on the ground. I could see that her eyes were moist, either from fear or anger, but she stayed focused. The rest of her MMA teammates looked ready to intervene if things went south. It was an overwhelming sight. A bunch of highly trained teenagers who could defend themselves at a professional level, facing down a group of officers who had no clue about their skills. "How old are you?" Officer Wilkins demanded. 17, Emily answered softly. He glanced at me. "And you're her father?" "Yes," I said. "Please, let's be rational here." Out of nowhere, a voice called across the lot. "I'm with Channel 9. Local news. This is a permitted event." A local reporter who had arrived to cover the demonstration was filming the entire exchange. A ripple of tension spread among the onlookers. If the officers continued to escalate, they'd be doing so on camera. Karen, still standing off to the side, realized she was on video. She tried to edge away, but some of the parents blocked her path. She'd lit this fire, and they weren't going to let her slip away from the scene. Officer Kim looked at the permit again and then at Wilkins. "It's valid. This is a legitimate demonstration. We should just give them a warning if we believe there's any issue at all and let them continue." An awkward silence followed. Officer Brooks slowly lowered his taser. Wilkins hesitated a moment longer before finally releasing his grip and taking a step back. Coach Davis, always calm, gestured to Emily. "It's all right. You're free to go." Emily lifted her eyes, her arms still on her head. She lowered them cautiously. The entire scene was captured on multiple cell phones. People murmured words of disapproval toward the officers, and some hurled accusations at Karen. As soon as the immediate threat subsided, I walked over to Emily and hugged her tight. She was trembling, whether from anger or adrenaline, I couldn't say for sure. She whispered, "I'm fine, Dad. I'm okay." Then the entire demonstration group gathered behind her, forming an unspoken wall of solidarity. The officers realized they had made a huge mistake by assuming Emily was some kind of menacing thug. She was a polite, law-abiding high school athlete who happened to be adept at martial arts. No crime in that. The story might have ended there with a heated argument and a few tense apologies, but Karen had unwittingly sown the seeds of her own downfall. In her eagerness to paint Emily as a criminal, she had lied to the police, claiming the demonstration was unsanctioned and out of control. Multiple witnesses, videos, and a valid city permit proved otherwise. Within a day, the local media caught wind of the incident. The reporter from Channel 9 aired a segment featuring footage of the confrontation. The headline read, "Asterisk, teen martial arts champion held at taser point over misunderstood demonstration." Asterisk community outrage grew. Why had the police reacted so aggressively, especially when shown a valid permit? Why had they not listened to the coach or checked the facts more carefully? Why was a minor the target of such unwarranted aggression? The police department was forced to hold a press conference. A spokesperson apologized for the officers' overreaction and promised an internal review. Meanwhile, Karen tried to distance herself from the fiasco, claiming she only called out of public safety concerns. But it was too late. People in Conifer Heights were done giving her the benefit of the doubt. Neighbors began sharing their own. stories of Karen's relentless harassment began to circulate. A growing group of neighbors, fed up with her antics, united to push for a recall of her position on the HOA board. They demanded a full audit of the fines and citations she'd imposed, and the local newspaper, ever vigilant, began digging into the situation. What they uncovered was more scandalous than anyone had imagined. Karen had allegedly pocketed HOA funds, misappropriating payments from the community's budget. She had fabricated or exaggerated complaints to levy fines, some of which were never even officially reported to the board. Worse still, she had tampered with the official HOA meeting minutes to cover up her wrongful actions. As the evidence mounted, it became clear that Karen's pattern of deceit wasn't new. She had a long history of such behavior in previous neighborhoods where she had served on various committees. Each time, she'd relocated, and with every move came controversies and partial investigations. One she had managed to dodge by simply fleeing the area. But now, she was cornered. The media attention brought a level of scrutiny she couldn't escape. Furious neighbors demanded her resignation from the HOA, and lawsuits loomed over her. Even some of the board members, who had once cowered under her manipulative grip, began to speak out, admitting they had been bullied into compliance. During a special HOA meeting, Karen attempted to maintain her composure, blaming the situation on a series of misunderstandings. She insisted she had always acted in the best interests of the community, but the outraged residents were done listening. They called for a vote, demanding her immediate removal. In a near-unanimous decision, the community voted her out of the board. The final blow came when law enforcement, armed with the evidence uncovered by the local newspaper investigation, filed charges of fraud, embezzlement, and multiple counts of harassment. Karen was arrested at her home, the same place she had ruled with such arrogance for so long. As news of Karen's arrest spread, the neighborhood let out a collective sigh of relief. The community began to rebuild the HOA, electing a new board made up of fair-minded individuals committed to proper procedure and respect for all residents. The oppressive tactics and arbitrary fines vanished almost overnight. For Emily, life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Her story, however, had spread far beyond Conifer Heights. At tournaments, people recognized her and asked about the taser incident. She handled it with grace, reiterating that the police had simply made a mistake. But the real issue was how one malicious neighbor could stir up so much chaos if left unchecked. I was incredibly proud of Emily and the way she carried herself through the ordeal. She used it as motivation to train even harder, determined to prove that discipline and respect always outweigh fear and intimidation. Karen's situation deteriorated rapidly. As the charges of fraud and embezzlement stacked up, so did the allegations of filing false police reports. Her legal defense crumbled under the weight of the evidence, and eventually, she faced a serious trial. Residents came forward with testimonies, bank statements, and forged HOA documents bearing her signature. In the end, the court found her guilty on multiple counts. The sentence was severe. She lost her home, which was confiscated as part of the restitution to the HOA, and was handed a lengthy prison term. While the false police report charge didn't carry a heavy sentence on its own, it added to the cumulative punishment. Conifer Heights was finally free from Karen's tyranny. I remember standing on my porch one evening, glancing at her now vacant house. It had once loomed over the street, an intimidating symbol of how petty power could ruin lives. Now, it stood empty, a silent reminder of what happens when arrogance collides with accountability. 6 months after the incident, Emily competed in the National MMA Championships for her age group, claiming another title. Cementing her reputation as a young force to be reckoned with in martial arts, cameras flashed, crowds cheered, and sports news channels covered her victory. However, this time, no one confronted her with a taser. Instead, there was only admiration and respect. Back home, the new HOA board operated with transparency and openness. They invited residents to submit suggestions for improving community life, introducing plans to build a small neighborhood park, hold monthly get-togethers, and even offer free classes, such as self-defense seminars. Iron Faith Academy volunteered to host some of these sessions, turning what was once demonized as violent fighting into a demonstration of community safety and wellness. One day, as I was mowing the lawn, I noticed a for sale sign go up at Karen's old house. An older couple, looking for a quiet place to retire, came by to check the property. I introduced myself and told them that the neighborhood was improving, that we'd had some issues in the past, but they'd been resolved. They seemed relieved, and it was comforting to know that the place Karen once used as her personal kingdom would now be owned by people who simply wanted to enjoy their golden years in peace. For me, the memory of that day in Greenfield Park still lingers. I can't unsee the image of Officer Wilkins pointing a taser at my 17-year-old daughter, but I also remember Emily's courage and the way her MMA teammates stood by her. I recall the flood of relief when cooler heads prevailed and justice was served against Karen. In the end, I choose to hold on to the lessons we learned. That communities thrive on mutual respect, that bullies eventually face the consequences of their actions, and that you should never underestimate a humble teenage girl who trains day in and day out to be the best in her sport. Appearances can be deceiving. Beneath Emily's gentle demeanor and shy smile was the heart of a champion, a testament to resilience and fortitude. And so, life continues in Conifer Heights. We're forging a new sense of community, one that values cooperation over coercion. As for Karen, well, she got exactly what was coming to her. Sometimes, the long arm of the law and the collective will of a fed-up neighborhood are all it takes to bring down even the most self-righteous tyrant. The last I heard of Karen, officially known as Brenda Armidick, was that she was serving time in a state correctional facility. Her property had long since been confiscated and auctioned off, with the funds recovered from her fraud going back into the HOA's budget, paying for repairs, community programs, and improvements around the neighborhood. It was a fitting conclusion for someone who had built her small empire on intimidation and deceit. Emily's next big tournament is scheduled for the fall, and she's training harder than ever. I watch her with pride, content in the knowledge that we overcame the worst our little suburban world could throw at us. Life isn't perfect. No place truly is. But at least we no longer live under the watchful, malicious eye of a self-appointed tyrant. And the next time someone underestimates my daughter or her friends, I'll be the first to warn them. They might look like everyday teenagers, but they'd better think twice before threatening to tase a national MMA champion and her whole team. Hello friends, if you're new here, then don't forget to hit subscribe button. And if you like, then hit the like button also, and don't forget to tell me in the comments where you from watching this video.